So good morning. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I'd like to welcome you to our Sunday morning service for the Center for Spiritual Living, Space Coast. And if there's anybody watching this morning or at any other time that's never been to a Center for Spiritual Living, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And the Center for Spiritual Living, Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you are on your journey of faith, you're welcome here. And so to open us up and to begin our Mother's Day celebration, my wife Becky is going to open us with a prayer, and then Carol Gabico, one of our congregants, is going to do a spiritual reading for us. So Beck.
So I just invite everyone to turn within to that place of the Most High, where we meet this divine nature of ourselves, this higher self, this one that expresses this love through us, as us, and for us. I'm knowing my own oneness in divine nature, in this infinite love, this presence that is always here within me. And I'm recognizing this within each and every person on this meeting right now, that wherever each one of us is, divine spirit is. This infinite nature is calling us to emerge through us, this most authentic presence of who and what each one of us is. So right now, I am knowing and realizing for each one of us this authentic expression of who and what each one of us is. This loving presence, calling forth this wonderful potential of who and what we can be. And I'm knowing that this wonderful divine power is expressing itself so fully through Reverend Dr. Ron's message this morning and through each reader's presence, that each of us is calling forth, birthing this potential of who and what we are, celebrating and honoring our mothers, this loving, wonderful person who gave birth to each of us, nurturing us, allowing us to become the full expression of who we are right now. So I give thanks. I give thanks for each person who is volunteering their heartfelt readings this morning, and knowing that this peace, this presence is right here, right now. I give thanks, I release it, and just know that it is done. And so it is.
So it is. Thank you, Becky.
Little brown purse. My mom had a little brown coin purse. It was the one she would hand me when she sent me to the grocery store. It's real leather and has aged with me as it aged with her. It's the one thing I brought home when we sent her off. I carry it with me all the time. And today I fixed an area where the stitching was split and a gap of light shone through to the inside. Little brown purse. Swells my insides when I touch it. Reminds me of those hands that held it. She never seemed to know that I put money into it whenever I went to the store. Little brown purse. We all own one, you know. That sacred place that we hold to our heart, the thing that lets all the love build and peace surround us for just a second. Might be something or someone, might be a scene out the window or one inside, but we all own a little brown purse. It's good to hold it tightly because the spirit lives in it, lives in the memories and the feelings it arouses, fills the blank holes that nothing else can fill. Little brown purse, hold it close and say with me, thank you, God.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was beautiful. So this morning we're going to do something different. We're going to have four of our congregants and me speak about our parents, our mother. And I don't actually know what they're going to say, so I can't say a lot about it. So we're going to do that. And then in between the speakers, I'm going to read some stories, most of which come from the book Chicken Soup for the Mother's Soul. And so we'll get going, but I thought I would start it off by doing a reading. And I found this week, and I just actually looked this morning, and this is an email somebody sent me in 1999. So I've got it 22 years. And it's titled Things My Mother Taught Me. My mother taught me logic. If you fall off that swing and break your neck, you can't go to the store with me. My mother taught me medicine. If you don't stop crossing your eyes, they're going to freeze that way. My mother taught me to think ahead. If you don't pass your spelling test, you'll never get a good job. My mother taught me ESP. Put your sweater on. Don't you think I know when you're cold? My mother taught me to meet a challenge. What were you thinking? Answer me when I talk to you. Don't talk back to me. My mother taught me humor. When the lawnmower cuts off your toes, don't come running to me. My mother taught me how to become an adult. If you don't eat your vegetables, you'll never grow up. My mother taught me about genetics. You're just like your father. My mother taught me about my roots. Do you think you were born in a barn? My mother taught me about the wisdom of age. When you get to be my age, you'll understand. My mother taught me about anticipation. Just wait till your father comes home. My mother taught me about receiving. You're going to get it when we get home. And my all-time favorite, justice. One day you'll have kids, and I hope they turn out just like you. And then you'll see what it's like. And she thought I wasn't listening. So to open us, to begin, one of our congregants, Rosemary Augustine, is going to take a turn and share with us whatever she's going to share with us. Thanks, Rosemary.
Thank you. And boy, those comments that you just made resonated. My mother said every one of those.
Mine too.
So I wrote a piece that's a little different. It's Thoughts of Mom on Mother's Day. And I want to share it with you, and hopefully you'll enjoy it as much as I enjoyed writing it. First, you need to know my mom had 6 kids. Well, 7 if you count the one she had as a teenager. 5 boys and 2 girls. The girls always had to be assertive to get attention because Mom idolized her boys. Over the years, we all watched her. She always made sure we were well cared for, ate good food, and kept a clean house. Breakfast was always early, but dinner, she made sure it was always at 6 o'clock, no matter where we were and no matter where any of us were that day. She was a good cook, and often she would experiment with delectable dishes. We never stuck our noses up at those dishes because we knew, eat what's on your plate or you don't eat at all. Sometimes my brothers would grab what was on my plate, and my mom would interject with a, hey, and then the look. Oh, her look. If you weren't careful, her look would haunt you in the middle of the night. We were a messy lot as we grew, but Mom always happily cleaned up our messes. Even when we were sick, she would sit by us, comforting us, even though we didn't want the attention, especially after recovering from dental surgery, or vomiting in the middle of the night. She truly cared for our well-being, and she loved us probably way more than we loved her. She always fussed over Christmas, decorating the house with lights and trees and pretty wrapped gifts. We made sure we each bought her a little something so she would know how much we loved her, even if we didn't show it any other time. She would wrap our gifts and marvel as we tore open the wrappings. And we made sure the ribbons were strewn about the house, making more work for her. We secretly laughed about the messes we always made as we watched her clean it up. Often we would go tearing through the house, knocking things over and fighting with our brothers. Mom would get between us and yell, "Just stop it. Can't you learn to love each other?" As we grew, Mom was a lot of fun, like the time she would play ball with us, letting us catch the ball because she would miss on purpose. Like the time she wore a crazy hat and wanted all of us included in her selfie. Or like the time she just started laughing for no reason at all. We were ready to call the ambulance and have her hauled away. And to this day, she still talks about her cross-country trip with her oldest boy. It was such a crazy trip, she wrote a book about it. A few times Mom was pretty sick, and we wondered if she was going to die. My brothers and I would hover over her, wondering what would we do if she died. We silently cried when this would happen. One time my brother shook me and said, "Let's just be with her now, comfort her, hold her hand, let her know that although there are times we are a handful, we love her, we need her. Let's just be with her now." And so we did. And what seemed like only a few days, she was back to herself, chasing us, feeding us, and giving us that haunting look. Mom, we want you to know how much we love you. Life wouldn't be the same without you. You are our rock. And we are so glad to call you Mom. The day you came into our life, we did the right thing when we picked you. Happy Mother's Day to our fur mom. Love your feline companions for the last 35 years. Byron, Max, Zach, Ziggy, Oscar, Buttercup, and Snowball.
Thanks, Rosemary.
A little different, but you know,
Wow, thank you.
you're welcome.
So I want to read a story that frankly means a lot to me. I'll read it and then I'll tell you why. It's titled "In the Genes." A young woman named Mary gave birth to her first child, and because her husband was on military duty, she spent a couple of weeks after the birth at the home of her parents. One day, Mary mentioned to her mother that she was surprised the baby's hair was reddish when both she and her husband were blonde. "Well, Mary," said her mother, "you got to remember, your daddy's hair is red." "But Mama," said Mary, "that doesn't make any difference because I'm adopted." With a little smile, Mama said the loveliest words that her daughter had ever heard. "I always forget." I love that story personally because I have 3 children, 2 of whom are adopted, and I had the same exact experience with one of my sons when he was questioning the fatherhood of one of his infants because the eyes were different. And I tried to explain to him about recessive and, genes, and it wasn't working. And so I just said to him finally, "Well, look, she's got the same color hair your mom had, the same color eyes your mom has." And he looked at me and broke up laughing. And I said, "What's so funny?" And he said, "I'm adopted." And I went, "Oh my God, I forgot." So our next person that's going to come in to talk about her mom is our practitioner, one of our practitioners, Ginny Panic. So Ginny, you're on.
All right, I want to thank you, Ron, for encouraging me to speak today. I really want to thank you for that.
Oh.
So I was so impressed with my feelings and my ability to get this out that I posted on Facebook also. In the book, A Year of Daily Wisdom from Ernest Holmes, he writes, "Love is the lodestone of life, the great and supreme reality. Love is the highest gift of heaven the greatest good on earth, and the treasure of all our searches. It is the end and the aim of everything. Love transmits some subtle essence to life, to everything it touches, awakening within all things an equal awareness and response. Love is the greatest healing power there is, and no one feels whole without it. Nothing could embody that divine love more than the person who held us, cared for us, and nurtured us from the moment of birth. For me, that honor goes to my mother. She was there when I was most fragile, and she protected me until I could stand on my own. She saw me at my worst and my best, and all those times in between. She was patient and she was kind. I know I tested her patience more than any of their other children ever did. Yet for many years and up until recent times, I held resentment for her in my heart. I was stubborn and I was steadfast in my hostility. The seed was planted in my mind shortly after my father died. I was 7. I saw my mother's humanness, her fragility, and it scared me. I wanted a stronger mother. And it grew from there, taking on a life of its own. There was a time you could search my house and never find a picture of my mother. Today, she holds a place of honor on the wall for all to see. In forgiving her, I discovered there was nothing to forgive. I discovered I was living in bondage to my time-blinded eyes. Today, I see a woman who always did the best she could, even under the most difficult of situations. Ernest Holmes says the veil between life and death is very thin. As I released her and myself into the glory of love, I know she felt it. I know she rejoiced with me. Thank you, Mom, for all that you were and all that you did. And wherever you are today, know that I love you. This is dedicated to my mother, Evelyn Nora Leach. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Ginny. So our next reading, I asked Becky to do this. And I just want to say, I'll just give you a warning, it's a tissue turner. So it's titled, When a Child Goes Off to College.
Yes, and it was written by Phyllis Volkins. Thank you, Phyllis. I thought I was taking her to kindergarten. Then what am I doing on this college campus? Isn't this the blanket I made for her nap time? Why am I putting it on the strange bed? What are we doing here? She's so excited, and I'm pretending the stone sitting on my heart isn't there. Where did the 18 years go? The drive home is long and lonely. I walk into the house. It's so still, as though everyone is gone forever. Her room is so bare and quiet, and oh Lord, it's so empty. I can't believe it. You can even see the carpet. Her bed is made all neat and tidy, not even a lump from a lost sock. The curtains are straight at the windows, and the closet is almost vacant. But what's that? The junk is still under the bed. I hear the school bus rumbling its way up a road, and my heart leaps because for one sharp instant, I think she's home. And then with a ragged sigh, I remember the school bus doesn't stop here anymore. The driver rounds the corner, shifts gears, and drives on, and I stare at the empty driveway. No more schoolgirl. The house full of friends, the trail of clutter, the messed up bathroom, just clean, tidy, dull, quiet. This morning I was a mother, 18 years on the job. Then, just like that, I've been phased out. What do I do now? Whom do I nurture? So I want her to be independent, and I know I'm supposed to work my way out of a job, but Why didn't they tell me how one corner of your heart falls off when the time comes? Wasn't it just yesterday she cuddled in my lap, her baby curls shining in the sunlight? Then I remember another autumn, another place. I was the young girl going away to college, standing on the threshold of dreams, the air crisp and sparkling with the excitement of new tomorrows. It was my father who stood waving goodbye, his whole body slumped with sorrow. Oh, my father, now at last I understand. A phase of living gone, a child you nurtured no longer needing you, an empty spot in your heart and days. I expect I'll recover and pursue new dreams, relish unlimited time, love not picking up clutter, and growing to adore tidy bathrooms. But right now, for a little while on this golden summer, autumn afternoon, I think I'll just sit here in a young girl's bedroom, clutch an old and much loved doll, and cry my tears and remember.
Thanks, Beck. So I think I'll go next. So I wanted to share about a story about my mom and then a story about Becky's mom. I had a much better relationship with my dad than my mom. In fact, the older I got, the less we got along. But this week, or maybe last week, I was reading Time magazine, and there was an article about people who are burdened with college loans. and they gave examples. And when I read one of the examples, it really stopped me, because it was a woman, I think she was in her 40s now, and she still, it was like 20 years later, she still had these heavy loans. She's been paying and paying and paying, but with the interest, she still had a lot left to pay off. And it said in the article, because of her loans, she never got married and she never had children because she didn't want to burden somebody with her debts. And that article, when I read that, it hit me, because what I remembered was when I was in college, my mother had really bad cataracts, and she wouldn't have them operated on because she continued to work and go to work and take the subway every single day so she could make enough money, not just for college, but for graduate school, so I wouldn't have those debts. So I never had that experience of having debt that would be over my head for 25 or 30 years and having to bring it into a marriage or a relationship. When I read that, I just stopped and said, thank you, Mom. So I want to lighten it up. I want to tell you a story. Becky's going to talk about her mom, but this is my favorite, my favorite Mary story, Mary Kawamoto. So when Becky's mom would come to our house to visit, she didn't have a whole lot of energy. So she would plop herself in front of our TV, put on Fox News, and watch it from early morning till whatever. And it would drive us crazy. It wasn't just that we weren't the same place politically. It wouldn't have mattered what news station. The point is, the news doesn't change that much during the day. And so while the newscasters would change, the stories would be the same over and over and over, and we couldn't escape it. So one day, well, let me stop and just say, those of you who watch news may know Paula Zahn. Paula Zahn is a newscaster, worked for a lot of stations, and she's a very tall, very, very pretty woman. So one night when Becky and I thought we were going to lose our minds, I went to Becky and I said, I have an idea, play along with me. And now I never told Becky what I was going to do. She had no idea. I said, just play along with me. And she said, okay. So her mom was sitting there and I walked over and I stood by her mom and I said, I need to change the channel. And her mom said, why? And I said, well, Paula Zahn has a show on CNN at 7:00 and I have to watch it. And her mother said, why? Why do you have to watch it? So I turned to Becky and I said, Beck, it's okay, isn't it? I'm going to tell her. You know, I'm going to tell her. Now, Becky, again, doesn't know what she's agreeing to, but she said, it's okay, tell her. So I said, Mom, I'm not proud of this, but Becky knows I'm having an affair with Paula Zahn, and I have to watch her every night because I never know when she's going to call me after the show. And if I haven't listened to it, she gets really mad at me. And her mother looked up at me and said, you're having an affair with Paula Zahn? And I said, yes, I am. And she said, tell me, does Paula know? So I'm going to do another story here. It's titled Moving Mountains. And it's about two warring tribes in the Andes. And one lived in the lowlands and the other lived in the mountains. And they would plunder. And one day, the mountain people invaded the lowlanders. And as part of their plundering, they kidnapped a baby of one of the lowlander families. And the lowlanders didn't know how to climb mountains. They didn't have trails. But even so, they took their best party of fighting men to climb the mountain and bring the baby back home. And they tried one method of climbing and then another, and then they tried one trail and another. And after several days' efforts, they climbed only a couple of 100 feet. And they felt hopeless and helpless. And they decided that their cause was lost. And they prepared to return to the village below. And as they were packing up their gear for the descent, they saw the baby's mother walking towards them. And they realized she was coming down the mountain that they hadn't figured out how to climb. And then they saw she had the baby strapped to her back. And they said, how could that be? And so one of the men greeted her and he said, we couldn't climb this mountain. How did you do it when we, the strongest and most able men in the village, couldn't do it? She just shrugged her shoulders and she said, it wasn't your baby. So now I'm going to ask Carol Gabika to come back and share a story about her mom.
Thank you, Reverend Ron. My mom was really special to me, and this is dedicated to her. I still have many days a week that 7 p.m. reminds me to call my mom, 208-585-2947. My fingers are still trained to touch those keys, knowing my mother was on the other end. Every night, no matter what strange country I might have been in, time to call mom, time to touch base. Every night, time to feel unquestioning love, time to be at peace, time to let my shields down, time to call mom. I come from a little town in the Boise, Idaho Valley called Middleton. My school system included all the farming country around, and my class still averaged 36. If there was anyone in the entire school or church or community that did not know my mom or know of my mom, it was their loss. She was Middleton's mom, self-made supporter of youth. She made us all feel like we had everything the big towns had. She learned to decorate cakes like wedding cake providers and brought her cupcakes to the classroom as her room mother, decorated with iced roses. The teachers would have to do a drawing to see who would get Della's cupcakes, while the rest were stuck with plain old cupcakes. Halloween trick-or-treaters got big pumpkin face cookies handmade and given to every kid at the door. We were their favorite place to land till the kids from the neighboring towns heard about it, and she had to turn out the light at 7 p.m. Special was her livelihood. It kept her sane in a town too small for her, but gave her a reason to share her love. She taught us to give, taught us to love. It wasn't too much later that we discovered that we truly didn't have any money. She magically made the dollars stretch to allow her to sew our clothes, do amazing gift wrap, and feed lunch to children we brought home unannounced to her because they forgot their lunch. She was indeed Middleton's mother, room mother, Methodist Youth Fellowship mother, drove the backcountry roads to pick up kids who couldn't attend without a ride, always there. Riding the school buses to take us to the zoo, the roller skate rink, which was such a special treat, and the one that my niece and I still remember. As we grew into our teens, she brought a dance instructor in from the big town of Caldwell to teach us how to dance in her family room. We even went on TV. And of course, Mom drove us and helped make our costumes. She was there for me when I left college for a semester and joined my hippie friends in Idaho Falls. It had to have cut her in half, but you could never tell it. I remember when my friend and I got a ride from one of her friends from California. Hair past his shoulders, hippie van intact. We drove from Moscow, Idaho to Idaho Falls and stopped to stay overnight, yes, Middleton, Idaho. Mom welcomed my friends with pallets on the living room floor while Dad watched TV in the family room. That morning, I went to the kitchen and there was Mom. She stood at the kitchen window on a Sunday morning with a California hippie van sitting in our driveway and watched the Mormon church attendings gawk so hard, one of the ladies walked off the sidewalk and my mom howled with laughter. I could go on, but you get my drift. My mother, my stalwart, my friend. She kept me going when I was so very afraid. 208-585-2947. Mom. When my beloved Michael knew he was dying, I had a business trip to Boise, which meant that I got to go see Mom. He told me he wanted to go too as a surprise, which was a rarity. So I drove into Mom's carport and saw her waiting at the window. I'll never forget the look on her face when she saw Michael with me. I went to my meeting and Michael spent the day with Mom. Though I asked, neither would ever tell what they discussed. I only know that my mom held on, despite the odds, for an entire year after I lost my beloved Michael, giving reason to make a call every night at 7 p.m., a reason to go on. I will always believe it was a deal made by the two most powerful contributors to my life. 208-585-2947.
Thank you, Carol. That was really beautiful. So I want to read another story. It's titled Daddy's Little Girl. And it's written by a lady named Brenda Collins Bloom. And she wrote, I took my month-old son to my parents' house for a visit. During the first night back in my childhood bedroom, I heard my father get up and start down the hall. Then I listened to my mother say to him, "It's cold. Make sure the baby is covered." Pretending to be asleep so I could observe the new grandfather in action, I soon learned that I would always be Daddy's little girl. When he came into the room, he didn't go near the baby's crib, but he made sure I was tucked in before he shuffled back down the hall. So now, our last contributor is my wife Becky, who's going to read something about her mom.
So my intention was to have written this before we left on our trip, but that didn't happen. So after we got back on Thursday, the next day, I said, well, I've got to get this done. So I was at the computer and started, as I write this on Friday, tomorrow would have been my mother's 96th birthday. She passed away in 2011 at the age of 86. I remember the last phone call Ron and I had with her before her death. It was actually the last lucid conversation we would have with her. Ron kidded with her, and I had a pleasant conversation with her, but one that I don't really remember what was said. We had moved to Florida in 2011, and my mother was in the state of Washington. So during those last few weeks, her health was going downhill. And I remember that Ron and I kept going back and forth about, what should we do? Should we go there to see her? And the what ifs kept coming up. What if we got there and she was already gone? Should we go there or not? My relatives told me not to come, which is what we ended up deciding on. So we didn't go there. Shortly after we made that decision, she did make her transition. And I remember that Ron and I had our own sacred ceremony for her. We said a few prayers and we lit a candle for her that evening. I think being a mother or or a father can be a really tough job. Having been a step parent, I can say this with a lot of confidence. I had an up and down relationship with my own mother, but looking back, I can see how she really worked the long and hard hours to make sure that my older brother and myself were very well cared for. During those years of growing up, it was really difficult not having her around most of the time because she was working all the time. But I realize now that there are trade-offs for single moms, and especially during that time when my parents got divorced. And one of the trade-offs that my mother made was taking a higher position in the hospitality industry in another town where she would live during the week and she would come home during the weekends. And that meant, because I was only in the third grade at that time, that her parents and my grandparents, who I was very close to, would come and live with us and care for my older brother and myself for the next 3 years. And after that, the plan would be my brother would be in college and I would move in with my mother in her apartment and start a new junior high year during that time in a new town. So what did I take away as I was growing up? Well, this is what I took away from this. I wanted to be an independent working woman like my mom. I really admired her for that. I admired her for having gone through a very challenging life after being sent to an internment camp during the war because she was a Japanese American. I admired her for starting over after the war by opening up a restaurant business with a new husband, my father, and starting over after divorce. caring for 2 young children. One of the memories I have of my mother is that she was very much a person of habit. She had the same day and time every week throughout her entire life when she would get her hair done. And I remember that what she did was she would wrap this toilet paper around her hair every night so that it kept her hair in place the following day. And I mean, she really had very nice hair, and it was very well, very well taken care of. But the thing about it was that it used to really embarrass me when I was in high school, because she would drive me to high school every single morning with her hair wrapped in this toilet paper. But what I didn't realize at that time is that she still woke up every single morning, early in the morning, to take me to school, even though the night before she didn't get to bed until very late, because she also worked the night shift until closing time, because she was a supervisor. One of the experiences we shared quite often was the ability to know when one of us would call. Sometimes before she would call me from work, I would know that my mother was going to call me to ask me if I wanted a steak for dinner, or vice versa. I would call her at work and she would say to me, "Oh, I was just going to call you about that." It's not always easy to see our parents beyond the limited perceptions and labels we have of them. We don't always know or understand the complete history that makes them who they are. It takes time to have compassion, understanding, and patience, none of which I had very much with my mother at that time, but now wish that I had more of when she was still alive. We were both very stubborn and too full of pride to drop our defenses to really see one another. But today, I celebrate and honor her, thanking her for giving birth to me and being the best mother she knew how to be at the time. And so, Mother, I celebrate you, and I want everybody to see who you were. Mary Hisako Kawamoto.
I just have to add something to that. One of the things when Becky said she was a person of habit, every night she drank 2 beers, not 1, not 3, 2. And it became my job to get her to drink 3, which I was able to do maybe half the time. Anyway, so I want to do one last reading. And again, this is another tissue reading, at least it is for me. It's very interesting. It's written by Irma Bombeck, who is known for her humor. But Irma wrote some very, very touching pieces. And this is one of them that appeared in Newsweek. And it's, I'm going to hope that I get through this. It's titled, "No More Oatmeal Kisses." A young mother wrote her and said, "I know you've written before about the empty nest syndrome, that lonely period after the children are grown and gone. Right now, I'm up to my eyeballs in laundry and muddy boots. The baby is teething, the boys are fighting. My husband just called to say to eat without him, and I fell off my diet. Lay it on me again, will you?" And here it is. "Okay, one of these days you'll shout, 'Why don't you kids grow up and act your age?' And they will. Or you guys get outside and find yourself something to do, and don't slam the door." And they won't. You'll straighten up the boys' bedroom, neat and tidy, bumper stickers discarded, bedspread tucked, and smooth toys displayed on their shelves, hangers in the closets, animals caged, and you'll say out loud, "Now I want it to stay this way." And it will. You'll prepare a perfect dinner with a salad that hasn't been picked to death and a cake with no finger traces in the icing. And you'll say, now there's a meal for company, and you'll eat it alone. You'll say, I want complete privacy on the phone. No more dancing around, no more demolition crews. Silence. Do you hear? And you'll have it. No more plastic tablecloths stained with spaghetti. No more bedspreads to protect the sofa from damp bottoms. No more gates to stumble over the top of the basement steps. No more clothespins under the sofa. No more playpens to arrange your room around. No more anxious nights under a vaporizer tent. No more sand in the sheets or Popeye movies in the bathroom. No more iron-on patches, rubber bands for ponytails, tight boots, or wet knotted shoestrings. Imagine a lipstick with a point on it. No babysitter for New Year's Eve. Washing only once a week. Seeing a steak that isn't ground. Having your teeth cleaned without a baby on your lap. No more PTA meetings. No more carpools. No blaring radios. No one washing their hair at 11 o'clock at night. Having your own roll of Scotch tape. Think about it. No more Christmas presents out of toothpicks and library paste. No more sloppy oatmeal kisses. No more tooth fairy. No giggles in the dark. No needs to heal. No responsibility. Only a voice crying, why don't you grow up? And the silence echoing, I did. God bless you. Happy Mother's Day and have a wonderful week.